gray wool coat. She could almost see him coffin-boxed, and her wearing black instead of the white dress she'd carried with her to change into. Lamont LaCroix, the man she'd fallen in love with when she was 17 and wide-eyed, was holding court in the middle of a half-dozen young army officers. Since sunset, she'd learned more than she ever wanted to know about her fiance, more than he'd told her in the 20 letters he'd written over the past 7 years. She'd learned that he was worse than the carpetbaggers who'd invaded Texas after the war. The northern accent she'd barely noticed when they'd met now grated on her nerves. At first, his letters had been friendly, as though keeping his young acquaintance up on Washington politics. As the years passed, he talked of his dreams of power, and she encouraged him. 2 years ago, he spoke of needing her, of wanting her by his side. She hadn't bothered to think of all he didn't say. He'd fooled her completely, reeling her in. No, she corrected. She'd fallen for his lies because she wanted them to be true. She wanted to be the important wife of a senator, to live in Washington, D.C., all winter, and go to parties. Now, listening to him brag, Beth knew that she was an idiot. No man in Texas had ever measured up to this congressman and his letters. She wanted him to be real so desperately that she hadn't even heeded her father's warning. She jumped when she should have hesitated. The rattle of the train couldn't block out Lamont's voice as he bragged that the McMurray woman, as he called her, would fatten his bank account and warm his bed. She heard him tell the men around him that it was all he could do to keep from bedding her when he'd met her all those years ago in Washington. She was ripe and ready. He'd laughed. It would have been easy enough, he'd claimed. But he realized she was a gold mine. If he handled her correctly, he'd control not only her body, but her mind as well as her wealth. When one of the young men drinking with him suggested the senator keep her pregnant to ensure control, Lamont had bragged that he'd allow her 1 child, maybe 2, and then see that there were no other pregnancies. I want her by my side, not home-raising brats. Wait till you see her. She may be dumb as a stump, but she's built tall and beautiful, with ginger-colored hair that hangs in curls past her waist. The perfect woman to stand with me all the way to the White House. Beth bit her bottom lip until she tasted blood. If she hadn't caught an earlier train to meet her groom-to-be, she never would have seen him like this until it was too late. Now she saw the truth and mourned her dream. Lamont had lost his re-election, but with a McMurray on his arm, he thought he'd take the seat from Texas without any trouble. I've got 2 years to meet all the right people, he said. Then once I'm elected, I'll never have to return to the state. She slowly raised her head just enough to see him. His words were starting to slur, and he'd opened his coat, revealing extra pounds around his middle that hadn't been there years ago. His brown hair and eyes made him handsome, but she saw flaws now. Frown lines marked his forehead, and silver at his temples showed the signs of aging. She knew he was more than 15 years older than she was. It hadn't mattered before tonight. But now, she saw middle age weighting his shoulders. He wasn't a young man, and by the time she bore and raised his children, she'd be nursing an old man. Rain tapped on the windows, and one of the lanterns blinked out, throwing the back of the car into shadow. Beth didn't care. At the next stop, she'd rush off this train and vanish. No one would look for her. No one knew she was here except the conductor who'd punched her ticket.